дня Український кризовий медіа-центр продовжує свою роботу. І тема наступного брифінгу.
Our topic, presentation of personal photo exhibition with Derlemenka, Georgian in my heart, dedicated to the 310th anniversary since the birthday of the Georgian poet David Guramishvili. Our guest Yevhen Derlemenko, the author of the exhibition, the art photographer Mikheil Ukleba, ambassador of Georgia to Ukraine, Zurab Topuriya, Attache, cultural attache of the Embassy of Georgia to Ukraine. You have the floor. Good afternoon. First of all, I would like to remind all of you that today in Georgia they celebrate the winner, Saint George, who is considered to be the defender of Georgia, and nobody actually works today in Georgia, and we as usual we do work. So my congratulations, this is indeed a very significant holiday in the Orthodox Church, and it so happened that we actually were thinking about that day, and so happened that the Ukrainian House, our major partner and one of the co-organizers, actually provide us the possibility to use this day, and today we open this exhibition, and it's going to be active for the 3 next days. The exhibition actually is dedicated to the creative work, not so much to the creative work, but to the day, to the birthday, 310th anniversary since birthday of the great Georgian writer, classical Georgian literature, who is considered to be the representative of the pre-romanticism, so-called, the person who is actually a symbol of friendship between Georgian and Ukrainian nations or people. Why? Because if you don't know, after all the adventures and hardships he actually had experienced in the first half of his year, he decided to reside in the Mirgorod in Poltava region. He lived there the rest of his life, loving dearly the soil and the Ukrainian people and the songs and the tales. And actually he wrote here all his major masterpieces, which actually happened about almost 300 years back. And this year we celebrated his, so to say, jubilee, not really a big, or let's say what we call the major jubilee, but anyway, jubilee. Why Mr. Derlemenka? Because I believe, and actually we are blessed, I personally am blessed in the Embassy of Georgia here, because actually when I was growing up, I read his books, not only myself, maybe the whole generation, maybe some of you as well. We held his books in our hands, but we didn't know, and we just remember that the author of those books was Yevheniy Derlemenka, who actually created more than 40 art photograph albums. Sorry that I'm talking about you in the third person. And he's one of the founders of such a genre, the photo poem. And the same books are dedicated to the same David Guramishvili. They were created within this genre, and you'll have a chance to be persuaded about that. And more than 40 photo albums were dedicated, 7 of them were dedicated to Georgia, 2 of those to the creative work of David Guramishvili. And one of the major of his poem, Davidian. And today's exhibition is based on the motives of those photo poems. I believe that, well, I understand that I never mentioned that to you personally, Antonia. No doubt you have a lot of friends in Georgia, but I believe you are underestimated by the people of Georgia. So we tried We try to do our best. We actually we started just to give to you personally your creative work the well-deserved assessment or appraisal. This person is really a very modest person. I just almost forced him to come here. Not a kind of a joke on my part, but please tell us what you told me, how you photographed icons in the different mountainous monasteries without any illumination, how people helped you there. He said, Zurab, why I should tell you? Tell people about that. Those who would visit my exhibition will see all that with their own eyes. I do hope that you'll become very much interested not only in the personality of this man, but also his creative work. I really wish that you can a chance to communicate with that person, not only within these premises. Actually, we plan to how we are going to have this meeting after this press conference to move to the big hall. Of course, there will be some wine served, and just to communicate with that person, just to have kind of man-to-man talk, or let's say heart-to-heart talk with that person. I mentioned the Ukrainian House, how they support us. It's not that we did not expect that, but again, that was another pleasure of mine to work with the Ukrainian House personnel, starting from the top person management and all those who actually did their part to prepare this specific event. Now, Vera Leonidovna, who also visited us, I already mentioned that to her. I really I admire all your employees without any exception. And despite the fact that all of us, we face some problems, we are living through some kind of crisis, despite all that, all the years people work brilliantly, and it's not just kind of to give some compliments to the Ukrainian Christ Media Center. I did not expect actually, you come here to represent that and that, etc., etc. But anyway, we gathered together in this room and we are already working on that. Also, in addition to the people I mentioned before, I would like to note a very important structure which is being formed today, which is called the Initiative Group of the Georgian Ukrainian Group of the Cultural Cooperation. The matter is that this initiative group has been in existence, well, I'm talking about the idea, it's been in existence for many years now, and the group has been existing for several months now, which is supported by the non-existent foundation. But so happened that the foundation from the very beginning, it was decided to call it the Institute named after David Guramishvili, just for interesting. Well, but now they decide to rename it. The life dictates its own laws when we work in order to develop, let's say, to promote the dissemination of or spread of Georgian culture in Ukraine. We came to realize that we also have to do the same for the Ukrainian culture spread in Georgia, and we thought, why not? And we decided that the founders of this foundation will be both the Ukrainian and Georgian representatives. Mostly we are talking about the art figures, comparatively young, I would put it this way. So briefly about the exhibition per se in today's event, I tried to put it in a few words. The only thing which this kind of format, communication standing in this podium, or usually we either we're sitting in kind of the presidium or just in some armchairs. So I really don't know what to do now, either to turn the mic to the next speaker, Mr. Derlemenka, who is the author of our exhibition, or to answer the questions from the rostrum. I believe we give the floor first to Yevheniy, and then you have a chance to answer the questions. Yevheniy, you're most welcome to come to this podium. I forgot one thing. This is we have a very nice news in the happy news, I would say. Sorry, Evgeny, I told you already. This is a letter from the Patriarch of all Georgia, Ilya II, was dated today. He sent in his letter of congratulations dedicated to the foundation, this Georgian Ukrainian foundation, which is very important to us. I didn't mention the role of the embassy, but you understand that the embassy is has provided very active support from the very beginning. And actually, I'm talking here in two different persons. On the one hand, I represent the embassy and the cultural attaché. I'll continue, what happens, but though I'm really Ukrainian. I'm listening to you, or you would like to listen to me. First, you say something. What can I say? By chance, I found myself once in Georgia. I just woke up, and what I saw later, it happens. If you'll see the exposition what is on display today, I'm going to demonstrate why it happens sometimes this way. Again, it was kind of a miracle when I found myself in Georgia. I was offered a very nice reception, and it's happened in 1946 maybe or 56. Many of you were not born yet. They offered me a very heartfelt reception. I told them my intentions, and that was a launching point. 4 years of my 4 years of my life dedicated to that. I covered a lot of hundreds and thousands of kilometers in my car, even when Mikheil was still alive. And this book was dedicated to the Jubilee 170th anniversary. Actually, our cultural contacts continue the way they can continue. Of course, I wish we had better 10 days, but we'll see what happens next. What pertains to my work on this specific topic, that was a very difficult work, I would say, because actually in those days I didn't know much about that country. It was very difficult to implement or translate into life my idea or my concept. Since the poetry of David Guramishvili is rather philosophical in its nature, and in different translations, there could be some kind of whims or whatever, but this choice, how should I put it, my choice, how to implement it or translate that into the artistic form or different images. I chose that once and for good. Something I managed to realize, moreover, back in 1980, all those, in all this hullabaloo, you won't believe it. It's unbelievable. Involved were Ukraine, Georgia, Slovenia, Serbia, and Russia. Why? Because there was kind of a joint publication, Georgian Ukrainian or Ukrainian Georgian. So the Ministerstvo publishers in Kiev and in Tbilisi, on the one hand, on the other hand, all this kind of polygraphic base was located abroad, because that was a top level publication. It's 2-volume one. David is the first book, and the second, the Years of the High Destiny, which is associated with the poetry of David Guramishvili, kind of shaky destiny of man. You'll see during the exhibition and understand for themselves. I hope so, at least. Okay. what all this kind of the chaos or hullabaloo which you mentioned before. The polygraphic art was not really high quality one, and all the publications or editions published abroad of this kind, they were considered the priority ones to somebody. The circulation was not really big, kind of 20,000 copies today. It's considered to be a huge one. And a part of the circulation was published in Georgia, another part in Russia, another one in Ukraine. There was a Ukrainian Georgian, Georgian Ukrainian, Russian Georgian, I only remember that $500,000 was spent for that publication, but in those days we had a slightly different system. I mean, external commercial publishers were commanding all that. So what else can I say? Everything was okay. Everything was in good order. Thank you, Yevheniy. Thank you, Zurab. I believe that there will be some questions. At least myself, I have several of those. Mr. Zurab, if you can, please join Yevheniy on the podium. You mentioned that poet David Guramishvili lived in Mirgorod in Poltava region. I come from Mirgorod, actually very close to that. And actually, it was not a pleasure for me to hear about that. I'm going to visit that exhibition. I have a technical question. How many days this exhibition will be actually displayed here? And another question: do you have any plans to to bring this kind of exhibition to different regions of Ukraine? Several words about that. Very briefly, today we are going to open this exhibition. It will be here for 3 days. We are going to close the exhibition 6th of November. As regards to move it or to show that in different cities and villages, they're very interesting idea. Actually, I have not entertained this idea so far. This is a difficult task. I'm talking difficult. I mean to find such premises. So the idea was Yevheniy actually was planning to put this exhibition in a different place. That was a very nice place, but a very small one. But he said that I like it very much, the big premises in the Ukrainian house, but I proposed it to him. He said, no, you won't be able to do that. And I offered him to talk about that, and Yevhen was here, so we talked about that, and the Ukrainian house actually allowed us to use those premises practically free of charge. So if you could find a similar room or space somewhere else, it would be my pleasure to bring it to Lviv, for example, or to Kharkov. Maybe in Kharkov, is a monumental city, so maybe they have such big spaces or premises. Yevhen didn't mention that. There is a lot of information. You cannot keep it all in your mind, and Yevhen told me there is just part of the works, and some of them have not been printed yet. I mean, his pictures or photos, and it's not easy to find a big enough space, but it costs some money, Maybe it's worthwhile, if you didn't think about that, to do something in Georgia. I believe this will be now also topical. Georgia is a separate topic, a separate story. The plans are like that. I'm not talking about just this exhibition of Yevheniy Derlemenka. We are talking about some different projects. We are bringing a lot from Georgia here, and many people we bring here, and we kind of lend them to you, and just something we present. But we do not have enough money in the embassy. Maybe one of the ideas is a fundraising, just to implement or to launch a lot of different ideas and concepts. here we saw the kind how could implement that. I don't know, I can only say a kind of this subjective idea. The low activity of your embassy, or Ukraine embassy in Georgia, I believe they could be more active and proactive because the Ukrainian culture is not presented sufficiently there. Don't know why. Maybe using this kind of this foundation, we could do maybe something about that. This kind of exhibition, I'm positive it won't be difficult for us to arrange such an exhibition in Georgia, and we have similar projects. We were just concentrating, focusing our attention on this specific event. Our foundation hasn't been registered yet. We are there working on the logo. The most important is to have enough money. We are going to ourselves to earn some money through some commercial projects, maybe Katamadze, whatever is popular here, whatever, and where we are sure that the tickets will be sold out, etc. And where we are going to have full houses, etc. The plans are actually we have grandiose plans, but we have to think about that. The taxi driver told me we have to start with small steps, and I agree with him. Zurab, you're speaking about regions. Most of the Georgians come to Odessa region, or I mean the Georgian figures come to the Odessa region. Maybe you can do something there in the future. Okay, questions or clarifications, please. Yevgeny, you've been with Georgia for 50 years now, and only over the last decade is some major changes and transformations start to take place in Tbilisi, Kutaisi. You're only taking some pictures, some kind of eternal values in Georgia. Now Georgia, we had the movie festival, and now the photo exhibition, again, Kadamatsi, and also. Why don't we have the Georgia House in Ukraine? Maybe you could share not only cultural events but your cuisine. Why shouldn't we open the House of Georgia in Ukraine? Thank you. And the matter is that actually the last time I was in Georgia quite a long time ago. As for what I was doing there, mostly, definitely. Well, you'll see with your own eyes. It's shown. It's included in the exposition. Just to say that the history or something like that, it's not true, because I'm by profession I'm a graphics artist, and I actually create my books based on my pictures and the filming. Let's say it has a specific nature because it contributes to the book, and I'm working on the text of my books. And whatever script I write, I take pictures based on the script, and there is a lot of director's art included, etc. I have a lot of different, diverse topics in my books. Out of that 40 albums, 7 of those are dedicated to Georgia, the Yevheniy and the years of the Sheki, the Destiny of Fate is 2-volume. The Temple of is the only album, the only book which has been published as album. 1982. I can speak about each of those albums for the whole day, how I created, etc. This third one is Under the Heavens Vanity, which represent the huge gamut of the ancient swan icons, and you'll see all of those today. My album number 4 was the unique book Enamels of Georgia. 227 artworks, I can't remember for sure. 227 are the Georgian enamels, and the rest of the world are mostly can be found in Italy. This book has been published abroad. back in 1984. And it's a unique book. There are no analogs to that. The fifth album was the publication, a song about Georgia, a very beautiful album. In those days, I'll come back to your first question later. The album, which has the kind of forward, absolutely historical, associated with the culture and the ancient events, and then it is followed by contemporaneity, I would say, based on the Georgian nation, on Georgian people, their emotions, their life, etc., etc. What is interesting always to us. Then I published the album named I can't perhaps of the outstanding Georgian sculpture, Mikheil, a big album. This is unique sculptor, monumentalist. So I had to spend a couple of years to do that, but a very good book, maybe again unique in its nature. He himself was very happy about that, and may he be blessed. Coming back to your first question regarding all those historical things, whether I'm interested in those. Of course I am. I'm sorry, I'm not so. I do not look that nice today, in order to maintain this kind of activity. It would be my pleasure, of course, to visit Georgia again, but which is most sad. I told many of my friends to live a long life is bad. They said, why? Because when I open my telephone or my phone book, I don't know who to call. Nobody actually. So today is St. George Day. So this is the life we live. So what can I say? Thank you, Yevheniy. I can say at least two questions. So please, briefly, if we may. I just forgot. So Zurab, closer to the mic. You reminded me. I promised you to say whether the ambassador is going to join us or not. This is actually associated with a very busy schedule, even when we are talking about the cultural events, despite the fact that we do not have enough money for that. In the 19th in Zurab, and 20th the day of Georgian classical music in the Philharmonic Society. Nicole Sturchueli, a genius, as a composer, he came here, and also as a conductor, he actually performed Chernobyl, and the audience were just crying. Also, we celebrated the 18th anniversary of Gia Concelli, who is the frequent guest in Ukraine. On the 21st of November, we opened the new movie festival, the New Georgian Movies Cinema, and on 23rd, we opened today this exhibition. Honestly speaking, I'm always lost on my strengths. You were talking about, I'm tired really. I worked many years in the embassy in the United States, but always I was the cultural attache. In the year of Georgia, which we had in Georgia in 2005-2006, in the Pyrrhus Money exhibition was an outstanding project in the construction of the monument and square of the garden, small garden of Shatarostaveli. A lot of different events, Why we are moving towards Europe? Because everything they are very clear. There is a European embassy. What take the former Soviet republics, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia. In each of the embassies there's attache of culture who is supported, and by the respective ministers of culture, they pay the money for them, and they have everything planned in advance. If we had this situation, this is something in which we only can dream about. 18 months ago in the MFA of Georgia, they were thinking about introducing the Institute of Attache of Culture. our ambassador during the opening ceremony of the movie festival, a new Georgian movie. And he's on his road now. He said, Zurab, please have mercy on me because I cannot do everything, because I'm quite advanced in years. So let's start from the little step, from this foundation, the fund, and then we'll start to build the Georgian house. News of Ukraine, I would like to support my colleagues. In Dnipropetrovsk, we are going to have the soccer game, the League of Europe. They have the huge stadiums. They have a lot of space there for the pictures. This is very popular. We can support our friend, the Ukrainian Georgian house, Shatai Rostaveli. We have the vacant space there. Your taxi driver mentioned the small step. Maybe you could start from a big step. Yesterday, our chess players, Georgian and Ukrainian, they had a triumph in Iceland during the World Championship. We could celebrate that in this kind of house, Shatai family and the Georgian house. It's easy to say, I support you in that. I believe the Rab actually understood what you meant. The last question. Livan from Maidan, when I came to ATO and I was a volunteer soldier in Aidar battalion. I was pleasantly surprised that the ATO fighters were aware that David Guramishvili spent the long years of his life in Ukraine, in Poltava and in Mirgorod. But they were still more surprised when I mentioned to them that Lesya Ukrainka used to live in Georgia for a long time. In Georgia, yes, in Georgia, of course. And may her memory be blessed, she died in Georgia and she was actually buried in Georgia. But she was reburied in Ukraine, but David Guramishvili still rests in peace, I believe, still here. And they were surprised, and they started to read the books, and there was some kind of library there, So, it's not often. It's a rare chance to hear that Lesya Ukrainka used to live in Georgia and write her poems there. So what is being done, if you're talking about Lesya Ukrainka, to commemorate her memory, Well, in fact, one of the co-founders and the member of this foundation, he is a Georgian historian, a very good, nice person. Actually, he put a new life or inspired us in our group. On the contrary, he mentioned to me, Zurab, he said, wherever you look or whoever you talk to, Georgian researchers, etc., David Guramishvili and Lesya Ukrainka, nobody else. And by the way, we started to depart from this name, the name of David Guramishvili, Institute of Guramishvili. A lot of for example, take an example of the Kyiv University. I attended the conference there recently. They have a whole group of the scholars who actually work in this specific sphere. And just take the whole literature, Guramishvili, Lesya Ukrainka, Guramishvili, Lesya Ukrainka. But Pakidze, Roman Pakidze, who I'm talking about now, he actually has been working in the archives here for 3 years. He is going to start the Institute of, and he found a lot of interesting facts. By the way, in the letter of Ilya II, which I showed to you some time ago, the whole paragraph is dedicated to those names, that we have to further study that, we have to study the archives, and do something about that. So that's why we are going to start from small steps and maybe build the House of Georgia. Thank you very much. And this brings us to the end of our discussion here, press conference. And we're going to continue our talk in a different room. Once again, my congratulations, the get of this holiday. We are going to finish our today's work, and the schedule for tomorrow will appear in several hours from now. Yeah, at the very beginning I mentioned, not just for the sake of saying something, I really wish to invite you to move to a big exhibition hall and acquaint yourselves with those works, and maybe to have with us a glass of wine in addition to everything. Thank you.